specializing in electric and hydrogen electric vehicles and infrastructure, as well as renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel, and that's with the City and County of San Francisco. Her background includes 20 years of experience in private and public sector environmental infrastructure and transportation program management and communications. Since 2011, she has worked closely with local governments, nonprofit organizations, and community advocates to promote electric vehicle fleet and infrastructure planning, deployment, and outreach. So with that, please welcome Suzanne to the podium.
Thank you, Richard. So, hello. As you may have noticed, we had a little bit of a excuse me, a little bit of a snafu with loading up our presentations. There may be a little bit of moving around in the middle as we try and load the rest of those presentations, but we wanted to keep things moving. So I'm going to do introductions, and then I'll let the panelists do their presentations, and we'll have a short Q&A afterward because we're running a little late. So I think our first speaker is going to be Derek McGill. I have to say this panel is great because I live in Oakland, I used to work in Marin, and now I work in San Francisco with Sean. So good organization here from my point of view. Derek McGill serves as the planning manager for the Transportation Authority of Marin, known as TAM, and he's responsible for local and regional planning activities. Derek brings a multimodal approach to delivering sustainable transportation solutions to Marin County, and with over 12 years of private and public sector experience, he provides program management for TAM's greenhouse gas reduction programs, including commute alternatives and trip reduction programs, and TAM's alternative fuel program. Derek also leads TAM's transportation monitoring and long-range planning efforts. And I'll do the intros for all three right now. Dan Hamilton serves as the Sustainability Director for the City of Oakland, California. He has 20 years of experience in managing sustainability programs, policies, and plans for local governments and utilities. He's led multiple APA award-winning projects and plans across California and has taught professional and university courses in energy management, sustainable policy development, and green building design and construction. He holds a BA in architecture and an MA in sustainable planning, both from the University of Kansas. And finally, Sean Rosenmoss, awesome collaborator, but also a longtime social justice advocate. Sean's committed to ensuring that all San Franciscans can participate in the city's environmental programs. She develops resources for renewable energy, zero-emission vehicles, climate initiatives, and oversees the department's grant-making and partnerships, such as Green Stacks, an award-winning collaboration with the city's 27 public libraries. Prior to joining the department, Sean was an educator for 15 years, during which time she opened a school for young adults with barriers to scholastic achievement and employment, created initiatives to help foster care youth get into college, and managed a circus whose mission was to provide equitable access to the arts and use them as a catalyst for social change. A former dancer and aerialist, she holds a BS in electrical engineering and a secondary math teaching credential. Sean sits on the board of Mission Science Workshop and works on several initiatives to promote diversity in environmental STEM fields. So with that, we will start with Derek.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me in the back. Is this on? Thank you for having me today. It is an honor to be here. The Transportation Authority of Marin is one of the few counties in the United States that actually has dedicated funding for alt fuels programs. So we actually have a dedicated funding source for electric vehicle charger installations and EV fleet replacement. And we also conduct a variety of public outreach efforts, and that's really the three-legged stool of our program: EV charging installations, EV fleet replacement, and then public outreach. During the course of the last year, the Transportation Authority of Marin decided to place an item on the ballot to extend our local sales tax. During that conversation, there was a lot of interest in electric vehicles from our community, and we took a step back to look at our existing program that had been in place since 2010 to really understand what the current market was for electric vehicles within our public agencies throughout Marin. So you'll hear a little bit about that today in terms of just overall, and then individual sites as well as where we're going with our programs. So as of last year, we had 154 existing level 2 charging heads. That's not a lot. That's on par with some single site installations in Santa Clara County. But in terms of Marin County, where we have smaller parking lots dispersed over a wider area, It is a pretty comprehensive network overall, and we do see relatively high per capita EV adoption rates within our county. I think we're second only to Santa Clara County, which is not surprising given Tesla is headquartered down there. But prior to 2018, we only had installed about 60 chargers from our own program, and we weren't seeing a lot of traction on the fleet. So we wanted to really take a step back, understand what more money could do to the program. And at the end of this process, we actually allocated about $1 million over the next 2 years for a 3-year total period of $1 million for electric vehicle fleet replacement and electric vehicle charging installations. One of the first projects out the gate was the San Anselmo parking lot. Now, this is a relatively small charging installation in the scheme of things, but it really sets a bookmark of what some of our public agencies are doing in the county. The total project cost for this was only $32,000, not a big ticket item. However, we were the only grant fundee that this project would qualify for. And so we have set up a grant program that is targeted towards these types of installations, and we paid for 75% of the cost at $24,000. Really at the other end of the magnitude is the Marin County Civic Center, where we installed 47 charging heads available to the public. Now, this is actually a 4-tiered funding situation with PG&E, MC, TAM funding, and I believe BACMed funded portions of this as well. And what that did to our grant, basically about $180,000 cost was reduced to $22,000. So we really have to be careful in how we set up our financial incentives to make sure we're fitting the wide range of options that we may have for our public agencies. We are a last-in rebate, and we really work closely with our project sponsors to understand what BACMed will fund, what our PG&E will fund, and what MCE will fund, and tailor our programs and sites to leverage all of those funding sources. And that's really, once you've done it once or twice, you understand this process. So a lot of our programs geared towards this first-time site installers, either as an agency, your first project, going after multiple fund sources and the financial planning and site planning that's required, into first-time staff members. Maybe your agency has done this in the past, but this would be new for a staff member. And we're taking this model of tiering of project grants, and we're moving forward with a site installation of the Santa Fe school districts. And this is multiple Santa Fe schools. And we're basically putting the big money up front. We're committing to $96,000. But in the end, we're probably only going to be able to reimburse a city or a site host for about $700 to $800 a site or a charging head. That's because there's so much funding on the table from BACMed and from PG&E and from MCE at this point, where our TAM grants are basically as the last in. There's very little left to cover. The Santa Fe School District is taking advantage of that, and they're not participating in any funding of this other than the technical work required to get the approval process. This is all grant funded with no cost to the school districts. College of Marin has taken a very similar approach. Now, they are a actual community college, so they do have some financial contribution in their project. But again, it's that big ticket item up front, commit to $108,000, and at the end of the day, use that leverage to attract other grant sources and build the wins for your projects in your communities. Marin County Office of Education, they're taking us up on 4 EV fleet vehicles. So again, this is sort of the magnitude of what we're seeing from some of our public agencies. And what we really want to be moving towards is, as you actually move your fleets towards electric vehicle and zero-emission vehicles, what are your charging needs, and bundling these items so our charging installations go hand in hand with our EV fleet replacement. Overall, this is still a pretty low-cost program. A lot of our fleet is not that old and not that utilized, so we really are trying to expand the strategic thinking and eligibility of our grant, and I'll come back to that point in a second. We also have 2 new electric buses running around the Marin County streets, and we've helped fund up to $75,000 of that, along with BACMed and FTA funds. And then our next site, actually scheduled to open this month, April, not April yet, is MCE's office, where they actually have on-site solar generation on the overhead panels and installing, I think they've installed the actual 10 charging heads at that point. Very minimal cost from TAM. It's really the technical assistance and site planning and grant management side that needs assistance that we provide to our partner agencies. So we've actually expanded our program eligibility for the EV charging infrastructure. We used to fund basically level 2 charging, but we are increasing our match requirements. We used to have a 75% up to $3,000. Now we're moving it to 88.5 to really attract some more sponsors. But we're focusing on the technical assistance and the grant planning, grant management side of the equation. We are targeting specific opportunity areas and leveraging funds to really identify sites within key corridors, and then we're helping promote partner agency grants where those are applicable as well. And then we have a pilot project. We're looking for public agencies that are converting their heavy duty and medium duty fleets and looking to install level 3 or DC fast charging installations in their corp yards. Our EV fleets, we haven't seen the uptick that we want, and so we really took a close look at this program. It used to be just a local match for the CVRP program. So whatever the CVRP rebate was, we doubled it to really help attract and lower the cost of electric vehicles and zero-emission vehicles. Now we've actually expanded it to include vehicle leasing. You can actually go out and lease a Nissan Leaf for $77 over a 3-year period. And so we're really speeding up the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Like I mentioned, a lot of our fleet don't have high mileage. There's not an incentive for public agencies to get them off a road from a financial perspective because there's still a lot of life on those vehicles. We are including used vehicles in case any of our public agencies actually want to purchase a low-cost used vehicle, and exploring medium and heavy-duty conversion. We are expecting to see some of the F-150s retrofits to come on to the market this year, and some of our public agencies to take us up on that. And we're including other zero-emission vehicles, so your police buggies, your utility carts, and e-bikes even are included in this category. We're offering funding for any vehicle that gets a vehicle off the road, and that's our key here. This is a replacement program, so whatever vehicle type you want to purchase, as long as it gets an internal combustion engine off the road, we will figure out a way to help fund it and help fleet managers and fleet agencies plan out what vehicles are actually eligible for replacement, when do they come up, what are the electrical grid needs and charging needs, and bundle those into a actual strategic plan for them to take forward to their council. We're also working closely on the technical assistance side on the permitting and EV first ordinances. We want every city in our county to have an EV first ordinance or a zero emission vehicle first ordinance, and take policies on their parking and minimum parking requirements to basically allow for electric vehicles and zero-emission vehicles to count for multiple vehicles towards the parking requirements. We really think that that would overcome some of the ADA and the site planning issues that have been identified with a number of the small parking lots. And with that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker.